This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee on the 23rd of February. It's 10:18 in the morning and we're having our cold spell. No rain, so 48 degrees now. That's incredible for us. 49. Now our high will be 52. Tomorrow it's 52, then 52. Tuesday 56, Wednesday 60 but 39 at night. Then Thursday we come out of it at 64, then Friday 69, then 63, 66, then 70, 68. So we'll come out of it around Thursday. So we got a few days for Israel, a very substantial cold snap. It's very uncomfortable for us because our houses are built to keep the temperature 10 or 15 degrees cooler than outside, so you survive in the summer. And that's what we're dealing with. What's going on? 1 second. Okay. So we bundle up. As long as it's not raining, I can deal with it rather okay, you know. We got our firewood going, so we're good. All right, today what I'm going to do is go through a lot of reasons why America is headed into the ruler against ruler in Jeremiah 50:51 for the daughter of Babylon as civil war. And I'm going to go through it with you. It's not going to take a long time. You'll probably understand it very easily. And I'll just give you the breakdown. The problems with Egypt are now getting Israel very alarmed. They're working with Trump on this. Egypt, with the military buildup by our border in the Sinai Peninsula, is very, very serious buildup now. And Netanyahu delayed releasing the 600 or so hostages, the terrorist prisoners in our jails because of Israel, because of Hamas breaking the ceasefire, but it was a very flimsy excuse that Netanyahu came up with, and it looks like we're, I think, completely headed to war with Hamas, which means whatever Hezbollah can do in Lebanon, which is probably next to nothing at this point, really. And we have the Houthis. They'll come back in the fight. I'll go through it with you. Also, there was an incident. America was flying some aircraft over Yemen. One was a Reaper drone and one was apparently a plane. And the Houthis fired SAM anti-aircraft missiles at the American. 2 occasions last week, one on a Reaper drone and one on an aircraft. So it's rather safe to assume that Trump has to do something. I mean, I don't know what he's so scared of going to war, and we're going to talk a lot about that today, because if he gets embedded in Europe or he gets embedded in the Middle East, he's going to be attacked by China and North Korea. Anybody could tell you that. Now, they're not going to, possibly they won't start with the United States. They'll start with Taiwan and South Korea. But then on the other hand, they may surprise Trump and ignore those two, thinking we can go back and knock them off any time. Let's just get rid of America. And Putin may say the same thing. Oh, I can go around attacking NATO, but what's the point? NATO countries, let's just get America. And then we could always come back and clean up on NATO. And Iran might say, what's the point of getting involved in the Middle East? Let me go with North Korea, China, and Russia and get rid of America. Then I can come back and do whatever I want in the Middle East. See what I'm saying? We'll go through this. What I'm going to do now is check that we have a live stream, which is a good idea. And then make sure there's sound and picture. And I'll put my posts up while people come in. Check that we have a live stream. We got sound and picture. We got a live stream. You check the chat. Thank you, Ty. All right, let me put up my 2 posts very quickly, and then we'll get going. Now I'll get my email up. Okay. Looks like we're pretty good. All right. Thank you for all the greetings, people. All right, do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, let's start with the war stuff first. Now, if you know anything about your Bible, you know that what's really going to trigger the end times events coming shortly is what happens in and to Israel. Not Ukraine, not North and South Korea, not Japan, not Taiwan, not the Baltic. It's Israel. People like to run around and look at the wrong things because they don't know any better. Most of them never read the Bible. Okay. So here's what happened. The hostages, 6 of them were released yesterday. They were very thin. They were starving. They were saying they went through psychological and physical torture. One of the women hostages said she spent most of her time as a hostage in Israel in the homes of Palestinians. And they made them, normally they made them do housework and they were cruel to them, okay? Now, you know, if you want to torture a hostage and you're Hamas, you don't want to like take a branding iron and put it on their forehead or something where they could get in the TV and on the news media and say, look what they did to me, or give them a scar in their face or cut their fingers off or something like that. Look what they did to me. You don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. A hostage to say, look what they did to me. So what they do is they torture their private parts because they're not going to want to get on CNN and pull their pants down and say, look what they did to me. You got it? Okay. Also, they rape them, and because they're not going to get back on, come home and get on TV and say, well, I got raped, 40 or 50 times. Because they degrade themselves, and it's going to be harder for them to go back into society. Now, when they're debriefed by the military, it's secret and it's quiet, and they ask them what happened, and they'll probably tell. Okay? But it's not going to go for public. So that's one way they do it. The starving them was another. So this innocent Palestinian thing is a complete load of garbage. There was probably 5 or 10 to 1 innocent Palestinians that invaded southern Israel on October 7th. And they took hostages back to get a $10,000 bounty, which also applied to dead bodies. Why are the Israelis so obsessed with dead bodies? Well, in the Talmud, which has nothing to do with the Bible, by the way, and it contradicts the Bible, it says that if an Israeli is buried outside of Israel, when the Messiah comes, they know about a resurrection and all that, but they don't have the sequencing or the timing correct or anything like that. But that the Israeli has to dig his way back to Israel under the earth. You got that? And they know that Messiah is going to, he'll arrive in Jerusalem. So, as they see it, they don't understand Zechariah 12 and Elijah and Apostle John. What's an apostle? They don't know. They don't understand any of that stuff. They don't understand New Jerusalem. They don't understand Daniel's second 70. None of this. But they believe that if they're, let's say, if they're in Jerusalem, they're better positioned for the resurrection from the dead. So they pay large amounts of money. So again, they're setting up a system to favor the wealthy. Large amounts of money for the people to be buried in Jerusalem. And many of them are buried above ground inside a concrete or stone big, I guess we could call it a sepulcher or a coffin. They're rather, they look like they're about 2 inches thick of concrete, and they're probably 6.5, 7 feet long, and maybe 3 feet wide, and they may be 2.5 feet or so high, and they're loosely sealed. They don't rivet the cover into the concrete, frame of the coffin. So the Messiah could easily get the cover off and they could come up out of the grave. Do they have a wooden coffin inside that? I don't think so. Maybe. They might have something in there. When the Jews bury the dead, they don't dress them up with tuxedos or suits. Or, they use a shroud, just a cloth to cover them. And they put them in the coffin that way. Okay? That's how they do it. All right? They don't do it like they do in America and Europe. All right? So it's very important for them to have the dead. They want them buried in Israel and this kind of thing. Okay, the secular, I don't think, pay attention to that, which is half of Israel. So it's very important for them to get the bodies back, if that makes sense to you. That's what's behind it. They don't tell you that in the news. So, because of the way Hamas was ridiculing the hostages again with the stage and mocking them and dressing them funny and, stuff like that. And they were showing the hostages being released to other hostages that were not being released. And they sent the wrong body for the mother of the two babies that they sent, the dead bodies. They sent the wrong body, so Netanyahu called that a ceasefire violation, which it was. They said they made a mistake. They lie so much, you can't believe anything that comes out of their mouth. So Netanyahu just looked at their actions and said, oh, they're playing us. So then a day or so later, they found the right body miraculously. They sent it back. We did an emergency DNA examination in a forensics laboratory, and it was the right woman. And we were supposed to release yesterday, I think in the evening, 600 or so terrorists in Israeli prisons. And Netanyahu said, we're not doing that. So Netanyahu really broke the ceasefire. Netanyahu said, we're not going to release them. And the words he used were rather misleading. He said, until we have assurances that we're going to get the rest of the hostages. This last release yesterday of our 6 prisoners was the full amount of the hostage releases in phase 1. There is no phase 2. There is talk of a phase 2. But you have to understand that Hamas talks like it's real. And Israel never even casually or any way, shape, or form, let alone sign it, ever agreed to anything. And it's never been, the terms of this phase 2 have never been agreed on. So there is no phase 2. It doesn't exist. So, phase 2, what it basically calls for is a permanent ceasefire with Hamas. Yeah, so that means we can't start the war up again. We got to wait for them to do it. That's the reality of that. And they want Israel to completely remove any and all of its military out of Gaza. They don't want surveillance flights or anything like that. They want nothing. They want border crossings open, free access to Egypt, to the Rafah crossing, like it never happened. Like they never stormed in on October 7th and massacred men, women, and children in cruel fashion. Okay, they don't want that. Okay, so they want it to just be erased off the books and call it a win. Now, you have to be a psychopath to call that a win. They don't have a country that's livable anymore. It's a garbage heap. Okay? So they think the world owes them a responsibility to support them because they're killing the Jews and doing God a favor. That's a scripture that says that. They will kill you and think they're doing God a favor. They're doing Satan a favor, that's for sure. That's what the reality is. They don't know that. They go to the Black Rock whenever they got to make a Hajj once in their lifetime to Black Rock in Saudi Arabia. And they got some post that they say represents the devil, and they pick up rocks and throw it at the devil. So they're quite sure they're not serving the devil. That's an old story, isn't it? The devil likes to tell people that are not his open followers or his knowing followers that, there is no devil, or to ignore the idea. So, right now they lost their 600 or so hostages coming back. Now, not looking at it through Netanyahu's eyes, looking at it through God's eyes, what difference does it? Does it really make a big difference if these terrorists get taken out of jail? Because we know how things are going to end for them anyway. You know, well, what's the difference? You know, and you know, Israel got almost, well, with the 600, it would have been about 2,000 terrorist prisoners released, which is probably 40% of them. So they also want the other 3,000 or so terrorist prisoners released for the remainder of the hostages to come back. I have the numbers on that. Let me check them. I wrote them down. They seem to keep changing, but that's why I'm writing this stuff down so I can remember. Oh, before I forget, we have a prayer for MB, Mike Bravo. MB, Mike Bravo. The prayer is for strength, stamina, endurance, and joy. For MB, Mike Bravo, strength, stamina, endurance, and joy. Okay? It's not going away. I like to delete this so I don't wind up repeating it. Such problems with this thing, I don't know. This latest version of the iPad update creates some problems. I still want to delete. Oh, it keeps doing this. Let me try this. I don't know. Okay, so Netanyahu had a meeting with the Security Council, and the options that he was talking about as to whether or not to go to phase 2. Then he brought up a new concept. Let's extend the time period of phase 1 for a longer period of time, or just continue the war. So he's cooked up some new ingredient. Let's extend phase 1. Well, you know, that to the Hamas, what that means is Netanyahu wants to get more of the hostages back before agreeing to a permanent ceasefire and leaving and having the military leave Gaza. He has not much interest in that because it leaves Israel very vulnerable. If we do that and just leave, we can't do that safely. Now I'm trying to find the numbers. Curiously, the right wing that were pulling away from Netanyahu, a bunch of them rallied to him and say, "If you get the hostages back, we're going to support you." In other words, he's not going to have a vote of no confidence to deal with. He's not going to have to worry about getting kicked out of office, and then the Supreme Court accelerates his trial, which they will, the completion of his trial, and he could wind up getting 16 years in jail. In other words, die in jail. Netanyahu would sacrifice 3 or 4 million Israelis in a heartbeat to stay out of jail. You have to understand that. If you don't understand that, you don't know who Netanyahu is. The safest position for Netanyahu is to keep the wars going, so he can keep telling the court, "I can't go to court. I gotta run the war. The country's at war, and what's the court gonna say?" You know, he's the decision maker. So if he can get all the hostages back, so what Netanyahu could likely be up to is give me all the hostages back first. And I think it's about 59, and a bunch of those are dead bodies. Trying to think, maybe 17, something like that. Okay? Some of these hostages have been there for more than 10 years. They came before October 7th, by the way. Hamas is never going to give all the hostages up. If there was a permanent ceasefire, their idea of doing it, and Israel withdraw, is after Israel signs a permanent ceasefire and after they pull everything out of Gaza and do all the things Hamas wants them to do, then they said they'll give all the hostages back, which will never happen. We had intel. They intended to keep the hostages for years and years as leverage against Israel. And we know that. And that will come from good sourced intel, from people in the organization. So it looks like we're going to resume war. So it's worth a lot for Netanyahu to not have to face a vote of no confidence, because he's basically not just fighting for a political thing, he's fighting to not die in jail. All right. So I don't know what what Trump's gonna do with Yemen about launching SAMs at an American aircraft and an MQ-9 Reaper drone in the past week. So far, he's done nothing, except he said, "Oh, we'll deal with them." We're not sure if the attacks happened over the Red Sea or in Yemen, but I believe some people are saying the attacks were over Yemen. So apparently these were reconnaissance flights. Maybe something's coming with Yemen. I don't know. See, Trump is his threats are now worthless in the international community. Hamas, a week or two or so, told Trump they're worthless. Now, Iran publicly dared America to attack them first. See, Trump is worthless in the eyes of the international community. He's good for sanctions, he's good for money, he's good to buy weapons from, get weapons granted. He's good for that. But when it comes to war, they know he's scared to death. And I told you many times, he doesn't have adequate control of this military, the CIA, NSA yet. He has just begun getting his generals and his appointees in. Then they got to get their directors in, department heads. Then they got to clean up their group, probably 6 months. So Trump's scared to death about going to war. Greenland, Mexico, Canada are not states. They're all operating in defiance of Trump with counter tariffs. He never took the Panama Canal. Okay? Come on. Nobody believes him. Iran increased their nuclear material production 7-fold after Trump threatened them. Trump has to make a move, or everybody's going to laugh at him, like Biden when he gets lost on the stage. You think I'm kidding? It's already happened. I'm not kidding, because it already happened. Iran mocks him. Yeah, I dare America to attack us first. Hamas publicly says your threats are worthless. And the Houthis fired missiles at America's surveillance drones and aircraft. Is that not mocking Trump? He, as the rappers say, he has no street creds. He's got no threat value now. So Trump can do a couple of things about that. One is he could try to play it safe, okay, and not use the military, and keep pulling more military home, and keep building up the American economy. And then in several months, he'll have a handle on the intelligence apparatus, which is super important for war, and the military. Or he could see the writing on the wall and look for an easy target to knock off. The Houthis are an easy target. What are they going to do to America? Shoot at their ships? That's it. Shoot at their bases. They could attack Saudi Arabia very quickly and easily, but they probably won't, because Saudi Arabia is against America right now. And if the Houthis did attack Saudi Arabia, Trump would like it. Why? Because the Saudis would get scared, because they're worthless when it comes to fighting. And they'd want America to go fight their war for them, which is what they normally do with their money. Okay? The royal family heads up all the big important military posts in the Saudi military. A bunch of incompetent, gold spoon, overfed dumbbells. What are they going to do? So Trump could do nothing. See, the reality of this is, and you have to understand this, if you don't understand this, you will not understand anything going on with these wars, okay? The game plan, the snare on America, is with Russia, Iran. This is how I see it anyway. Russia, and that's, is there a snare in America? Some of you might not be aware of that. I'll read it out of the Bible to you. It's Jeremiah 50, verse 24, I think. Let's see if I got it right. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon. And thou wast not aware, thou art found, and also caught, because thou hast striven against Jehovah. All right. Yesterday I covered how Trump, of course, defies Jehovah. But if China invades Taiwan, North Korea invades South Korea, and Japan will get into the fight we're helping South Korea. Taiwan will get into the fight. The Philippines would do nothing, but the chances are China would dispatch a few warships and a few thousand soldiers to take over the Philippines. And Australia, if they send warships, sink them. They send planes, take them out of the sky. They're not worried. Australia has anything but a sophisticated, large, advanced army. It's very small. No threat to China, nothing at all. Barely a harassment, maybe borderline as a harassment fighting Australia. China would love to have Australia because they have all the agriculture and minerals and all of that stuff. Um, then Russia starts attacking Baltic states and Poland and Romania, and Iran and the proxies start attacking Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Saudi, Jordan, or whatever, right? Putting the whole oil production of the Middle East into jeopardy. And Trump can't stop him. He has to pick his targets. So China's reluctant to go in because they could be the target Trump picks. So you got a very overwhelming force. NATO can help, but they can't hold up either against all these countries. But the better move for these countries would be to just draw America in someplace in the world. So a lot of troops are out of America and engaged in fighting. And the Middle East seems to be their prime candidate. China's not interested in having it happen in North Korea, Taiwan area, because they're very afraid the fighting will go to mainland China. China would be involved openly. They would start bombing Chinese ports where they receive the ships and resupply them and re-oil them and all that. You know. So China really would rather not see it happen start there. Russia would not want to see it start in Russia because he's going to get bombed in Russia. But he's already getting attacked. Zelensky may have already attained the destruction of 20% of Russia's oil refineries. So Putin's rather desperate. He's already, but he's not getting ground invasions from NATO and America rolling into his country. So that leaves the crazy country Iran, which are mentally ill. And they don't seem to care about getting attacked. So the idea would be to suck them in, suck America into the Middle East. NATO without America isn't that much of a problem. So that's why Trump's not making any moves. The way his military is now is some of the generals and colonels may leak American military sensitive information about troop movements and deployments and things like that to the enemy so they could destroy American troops because they hate America and they hate Trump. They were with Biden with the beast, destroying the whore burner and eat of flesh. They don't want it. You know, Biden gave $100 million to Hamas for condoms in Gaza. In those quantities, what could a condom cost? 15 cents, 20 cents? So he gave millions and millions and millions of condoms to an area with a population of 2 million. Out of the 2 million adult males of a reproductive age, probably what, 200,000-300,000, and he gave them $100 million worth of condoms. Biden hated Israel. He was with the beast. Trump's with the whore. He wants a fake Israel, which is what's been going on since 1948. Checking on the chat. Nothing. Okay. Now, Trump has an entry point to attack the Houthis, but it's weak. Israel doesn't need Trump to attack Gaza. They need Trump to veto at the UN and supply weapons, that's all. And the weapons are already here. Now, Egypt knows that with Biden, there was no chance of Israel going in and playing a wipeout on Gaza's head. But with Trump, Egypt doesn't know. So that's why Egypt's deployed all kinds of troops and tanks. They've put offensive weapons there, not defensive, offensive. And they've dug anti-tank barriers. Now, the story about them stopping Gazans from coming in falls apart dead as a doornail when you look at anti-tank barriers. How many tanks does Hamas have? None. What about the Gazan civilians? So they're there to threaten Israel in the event that we go to wipe out Gaza. And this mental midget, deceitful leader called Netanyahu has been using Egypt to negotiate with Gaza for many years, while Egypt was letting all the weapons and tunnel material get smuggled in to Gaza. And he uses them as a negotiator. He is not for Israel, or he's one of the dumbest people walking around holding a high-ranking office. Netanyahu is bad for Israel. Bad. And he sees a way to get off of his criminal cases now at the expense of Israel. So what would happen if we had a war with Egypt? Well, we would probably at the same time have a war with Gaza, which wouldn't be much of a war. We'd have a war with Lebanon, which wouldn't be much of a war. And I don't know what Iran would do, and I really don't know what the Houthis would do, but I don't think it would be such a great effort from them. And we would have to destroy their military, and it would be months. So Netanyahu stays out of the courts for months more. But if Trump comes in, the idea is to scare Egypt. But guys, you have to listen to this. Nobody believes Trump will do anything. So now they're provoking him at a greater level, not just with Hamas and Lebanon and, stuff like that. But now they're provoking him with a serious player, Egypt. Could Trump wipe out Egypt? Oh, gosh, yeah. If he was going to preserve the civilian population, it would be 6 months. If he was going to be like Hitler, it would be 6 weeks. So I would expect negotiations to begin with Egypt, with Trump. That doesn't work out. There's going to be sanctions, cutting off military aid, repair of military equipment, and servicing, and any kind of friendliness between America and Egypt will go to a standstill. And if it doesn't work, then come sanctions on Egypt, maybe military vessels in the region, threats to other countries to help Egypt, but China already gave Egypt a small amount of these Su-10 fighter jets, and they'll supply Egypt with what they need, with missiles, rockets, artillery, um, you know, tanks if they have them to spare, stuff like that. And other countries will shore up Egypt. That's what will happen. So it's a critical situation right now in the Middle East. It looks like we're resuming the war with Gaza, and it looks like minimally Egypt would go into Gaza to stop us from attacking them. Or go into Israel. If we start attacking Egypt, they'll go into Israel. And they probably, because the war with Gaza will be going on, the Houthis will join in, Lebanon will join in, but honestly, I don't think either Gaza or the Lebanon, the Hezbollah, can do much of anything anymore. Iraq is rather scared, but they might join in. And it's highly likely Jordan would. They already threatened war with Israel over removing the people out of Gaza. See, Netanyahu isn't such a firm believer on getting the 2 million people out of Gaza, but he is a firm believer on getting the 20,000 Hamas. And they're affiliated, there's probably 5 or 6 of these little subgroups of terrorists like Palestinian Islamic Jihad and others, and getting all of them evacuated out of Gaza. And then we would also dig up and destroy all the hidden weapons and destroy all the tunnels. So it would be very, very, very difficult for the Hamas thing to rebuild. And we would more than likely start bringing what they call settlers into Gaza to try to live alongside the Palestinians, which is kind of oil and water. It doesn't mix, it won't work, but they'll try it. It'll be bloody. Trump has no place to bring these people. Let's say he's going to force the Gazans into Egypt because they're next door to each other. How would that work? What's the easiest way? Put them on a plane and fly them? You gotta be kidding. They have a border by South Gaza. Move them from north and central Gaza down to the south. Put tanks behind them. Make walls of tanks to stop them from going back. And then tell them, you've got to leave. Cut the water. Tell them we're cutting the water, the phones, the sewage, and the electricity next week. Are you going to pay for the electricity and the water? We're not giving it to you for free. Israel gets stuck with the bill. Pay us up front. You already owe us, $97 million. Pay us and we'll turn it on. We're not doing it for free. You're our enemy. Forget it. Go fly a kite. And go ask your neighbors to give you electric and water. See what they do. They can't because they can't get into Gaza. Okay? All right, so then let's say nothing happens. We put barbed wire on the tanks and we start pushing them into Egypt, right? Egypt doesn't want them. What do? They start with gunfire over their heads. What do the Gazans do? They freeze. So now you're at a choice of running them over with the tanks or letting them come back. It's so easy for Egypt to stop the Gazans from coming into America. It's easy steezy. Just fire the machine guns over their head or at their feet and they'll freeze. That's it. So there's no real chance of Trump getting them to go into Egypt. It's ridiculous. But getting 20,000 Gazan Hamas terrorist soldiers out, that's highly feasible. You need a place to bring them, which could be worked out, and then you put them on a plane or something, and you fly them to this destination. They get off, you kick them off, and that's it. It's easy. So the realistic approach is just getting the 20,000 out. So Netanyahu's version of the ceasefire would look like this. All the hostages immediately come out, okay? Then we go in and we destroy all the weapons and all the tunnels and all the Hamas infrastructure with the other terrorist groups. And we round them up and we put them in an isolated part of Gaza. And then we start removing them. Probably we'd have to do it in chains to some place and just leave them there. That's it. And Netanyahu and Trump would work on this together, and it wouldn't be that hard to do. They'd find a place. But getting 20,000 people out is a big job. But it's nothing like 2 million. 20,000 is feasible. Egypt doesn't want the Palestinians out of Gaza because he figures they'll rise up one day soon and destroy Israel again. They love the idea. They don't want to have a military fight with Israel because they know our missiles and our planes, our boats shooting missiles are going to enter Egypt and cause billions and billions and billions of dollars of damage, and we may grab the Suez Canal and the Sinai Peninsula. We'll say, well, we need the Sinai Peninsula back for security zone. You broke the Camp David Accord. We can't trust you. We have to have it back. So now we got Gaza back and we got the Sinai Peninsula back. That could happen because we're headed to redemption. It could be the case. If we're in a Jubilee year, and we've covered that, then we get the land back. Everybody gets their land and their home back. So it could really happen. I'm not 100% that we did hit a Jubilee year, because I don't think anybody walking around above ground here in a flesh body knows where the cycle is, except possibly Apostle John. I don't think anyone else knows. God knows. It could be we have it right. I don't know. Maybe we do. Who knows? If we do, then I think the scenario where we get the Sinai Peninsula, the Suez Canal, and Gaza back would be real, and we'd probably grab a big punch of Lebanon, if not all of Lebanon, and we're already camped out in Syria, so we could start grabbing all this land back that's prophesied to us in Genesis 15, from the Euphrates to the Nile. It's about 100 times bigger than what we have now. So these scenarios I throw at you could be real, if in fact it's a Jubilee year, and if in fact redemption started. Now I can tell you the year of redemption did not start. There's no question about that, because it begins with the appearing of the sign of Son of Man in the clouds. The two witnesses burn the enemy up. It's in Zechariah 12, emphasis on Zechariah 12, verse 10. So we're not there yet, but a Jubilee year does also call for the return of the land and every man reunited with his family. So is it a possibility that we're in the Jubilee year and the year of redemption didn't start yet? Yes. Is it possible that the year of redemption has to coincide with the Jubilee year? It would be likely, but I don't see why it would have to be that way. Remember, the year of redemption is a Shanat, which means it's roughly a year, but not 2 years. So it could be 15, 18, 19 months, for instance, and still meet the terms of being a Shanat year. But a Jubilee year, I believe, is a 12-month period. So that doesn't work for that. So it would be, in my Bible logic, that a Shana year is not going to coincide with a Shana year, like a Jubilee year. Now, a lot of you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to keep these videos shorter. So, anyway, so I'm not going to go keep explaining everything over and over and over again. And it gets boring to you guys that have been following me with consistency for some time. Ruler fighting ruler in America would probably occur before America starts getting destroyed, don't you think? Maybe. It also could happen at the beginning of it, when Washington, D.C. gets it in Revelation 18 mostly. Could that actually bring about the ruler against ruler? Yeah. Because D.C. falls and they're fighting over who's going to have what. Could be. But I think that when that happens, the rest of the countries will get destroyed immediately. And I mean immediately. So I don't think there's any time for it. So what's my best guess, without giving you 100% proof positive with the scriptures, is the ruler against ruler is going to happen preceding the big attacks on America. And Trump is certainly stirring the pot. Let me break it down for you. First of all, some congressmen are already filing impeachment on him last week. So, what, he's in office like 30 days and they're already trying to impeach him. That doesn't mean they'll be successful. I doubt they will. Trump's going to get rid of the Federal Reserve. Trump's plan is to use a Bitcoin type product to get rid of the paper money. It's got advantages for Trump because he could just mint the money as he sees fit with computer entries. Oh, we need another $800 billion today. They just punch it in the computer, hit the send button, and they got $800 billion. They don't have to go to the Fed and get the Federal Reserve to authorize the money and then print it. America prints it for the Federal Reserve and they collect interest on it, which goes to the owners of the Federal Reserve, who by law don't have to pay taxes on it, and by law we don't ever get to know who they are. So Trump wants to get rid of that. Okay, and that's why he's starting with the IRS, which is nothing more than the collection agency for the Federal Reserve. They were both started at the same time in 1913. They were never properly ratified by the states either, according to my knowledge. So Trump could dig into that if he wants to. But he'd just start creating a digital currency and get rid of the other stuff. Now, could Trump back this new digital currency with gold? Oh, let's see. Did we read that Elon Musk and Trump are going to the Fort Knox and audit the gold? Gee, we did. Could Trump back this new digital currency, which I think he's already started and got it going on his private computers? Could he do this and back it by gold? Oh, gee, he's auditing the Fort Knox. Should I say it a third time, or you got it? Did you get it? if they're now, because it's backed, it doesn't mean you could show up at a Federal Reserve office and say, "Oh, I got my Android here. Look, I got this. Let me send you so much Trump Bitcoin. We'll call it that as a joke, and you hand me in my hand some gold bullion." No, they're not going to let the people take it out, because the foreign countries would just buy the Bitcoin money and drain the gold reserves. So you can't do that. Russia, China won't just drain it. You can't do that. You're not going to get the hard metal out of them. So, at $42 an ounce in 1973, I think, or 71, whatever it was, they had $11 billion worth of gold. At 2,500 an ounce, it's $660 billion worth of gold. And there's talk of Trump revaluing gold. Now, gold's running at about 3,000 an ounce now. Let's say Trump manipulates the market and he gets it up to 5,000, 4,000, right? Well, before you know it, Trump's got $1 trillion worth of gold in Fort Knox. Now, he can back with a partial money system. So in other words, if he's got $1 trillion, he could he could easily get $4 trillion worth of Bitcoin out there. People would think that's great, but he would probably get about $6 or $7 trillion out. And that's a heck of a lot. How do you get rid of the Federal Reserve? First of all, it's an illegal Ponzi scheme. Second of all, enough states didn't ratify it. They put it into law over the Christmas break that Congress took in 1913, documented. Then the states had to ratify it because it was a constitutional change, and they never got enough states to ratify it, is what I'm told. I think the guy's name was Eustace Mullins, who wrote a book about this. And people asked me if I read the book. Not only did I read the book, I used to have an autographed copy from Eustace Mullins' book. I mean, it said best wishes, and he signed it. It had my name, best wishes, and he signed it. So I was really high on this. That's about 40 years ago, but maybe 35, I don't know, quite a while ago. But I was pretty high on this, right? And, but it's been many years. I follow the Bible, not that stuff anymore. But he could just get rid of the Federal Reserve, and because it was never properly ratified and everything, listen hard to what I'm telling you. You're not going to hear this elsewhere. Nullify the debt to the Federal Reserve. Do you understand how easy that is? You're going to hurt 12 people that own the Federal Reserve Bank. And you're going to help 350 million Americans. Do you know that the Federal Reserve Bank is a private company, and they have federal special agents with full police powers working for them? And they just did that to Elon Musk's private security service. That's scary stuff, by the way. They gave them federal law enforcement U.S. Marshal status. Now, when I very briefly as a young man worked in the Sky Marshal program, but it was extremely briefly, they didn't like me. A Jewish guy from New York with a degree in criminology, and that's where my undergraduate was. My graduate was an MBA. But anyway, what they did is they came around you became what was called a customs security officer. They gave you two sets of credentials. One was the two identity cards like the FBI, Fred Zimmer's Junior FBI. It was similar to that, not as impressive looking, of course, but impressive enough if you like stuff like that in a leather case with the plastic windows. And you had a badge that didn't go in the case. They also gave you like a police ID card, which I'll explain. You have a leather envelope that opens. Sometimes you have a piece of felt in there that keeps the badge away from the plastic window because it tends to ruin it over time from sitting on it and stuff like that. But anyway, you opened it up and you had a badge. It was a wallet badge, so it's on the flat side that went in your wallet, and then you had an ID card with your picture. Said Customs Security Officer and stuff like that, right? Okay. So that gave you the power of customs. But then what they did, because they were worried you're a sky marshal on a plane, and the plane lands in an airport someplace or crash lands in the backland or whatever, okay? Has to detour to another airport, and it was international. But anyway, in the United States, as a federal marshal, this is unconstitutional in my opinion, okay, and I'm pretty sure any lawyer would agree. As a federal marshal, you have the power of the local sheriff, the elected official, not a deputy sheriff. Well, the deputy sheriff has the same powers as the sheriff, really, but you have his power in that county. So anything he can do, you can do. You can write traffic tickets, but you wouldn't know how. They don't even have a ticket book. Nobody would know how to write a ticket, Nobody would care. But you could do whatever you want that the sheriff can do, you can do. Okay? And then the FBI started giving this power to local police about 20 years ago. They give them an FBI credential that says special investigator, not special agent. So they're not special agents and they don't get a badge. So they run around with their police badge and ID, and they run around with these two-card credentials that says special investigator. And then they take over the power of the FBI so they can work out of their state. So if the guy's in Kansas, and the case he's working on leads him to Texas, he can go to Texas and have the authority of the FBI in Texas. But some of them get federal marshal credentials, and I don't think that many, but federal agents would do it, and they have an actual set of ID that says federal marshal. With us, what they would do with the Sky Marshal program a gazillion years ago, they were getting you an official letter from a court signed by a judge, and it said that you were sworn in as a federal marshal. You have all the powers of a marshal. So you'd carry that in your credential case behind your ID card, and hey, I'm a federal marshal. This is usurping authority. So Federal Reserve has special agents. Look it up. They're not federal employees, but they have a set of credentials that say Federal Reserve Bank special agent, and they have arrest powers, and they can arrest with or it'll tell you. A lot of these credentials say can arrest with and without warrant, and stuff like that. And they have their own police department, which taps into the federal computer database. So they can run any information they want on anybody that's in the database, which is almost everybody, right? Criminal records, everything the feds have compiled on people, military records. Do you know how sick this is? You know who else has this? The railroads. Because this happened way back before 1900. The railroads were getting robbed, right? So the railroads were using the Pinkertons, and the Pinkertons back then, now they're just a bunch of rent-a-cops, but back then the Pinkertons were hiring crack lawmen. So they heard of a sheriff. They, in the old West towns, they had sheriffs, they had city marshals, they had police chiefs, and they had conflicting jurisdictions. Yeah, they did. So they had all different kinds, but they'd find an honest sheriff, police chief, marshal in some city that was running for a few years, had a reputation of being a tough, firm guy who was not afraid of a gunfight or a fist fight, and would kill fugitives fighting against him, with his men in gunfights. This business with the quick draw on Main Street at high noon, there's only one documented incidence of a high noon quick draw gunfight in the streets. And that is got some extenuating circumstances about it anyway. It was at a great distance. I think it was Wyatt Earp or Bat Masterson or one of those guys, or the dentist guy did it. I think it was Wyatt Earp, but it was an unusual, and it only happened once. Then Hollywood went off and made all these films about it, and people watched it, and they believed it, but it never happened. These guys would shoot other people in the back, ambush them, get the drop on them. They didn't go out in the street in a nice sunny day and go quick draw. These people go to quick draw contests. They dress up like old West cowboys and they quick draw. I mean, it never happened. These crooks were not that stupid. If somebody was cheating them at cards, they weren't going to go out in the street and have a showdown with them. Or if the guy said, well, you're cheating, what would likely happen if he said you're cheating is they used to carry Bowie knives. Knowing a lot about martial arts and swords and knives, a Bowie knife has got to be my favorite knife. Okay? And they would wear them inside their shirt or outside their shirt under their coat or their jacket, and the handle had easy access. You're talking a 10 to 12 inch blade, at least 16-ounce thing. The hilt at the top, 1/4 of an inch. These things could cut a limb off a hand anyway and go through a skull. So if he thought the guy was cheating, right across the card table, just lean over and get the guy wherever he wanted to get him. He wouldn't go out in the street and do a draw where he had a 50% chance of losing and he didn't know how fast the guy was, how accurate it was. It wasn't speed, it was accuracy that was the problem. These guns weren't as good as the guns that they have today. Neither was the ammo. It was black powder ammo. And, you had a pretty good chance if you hit the other guy and you didn't get him in the right spot, he'd keep shooting at you. And they never did this. Did they carry derringers in their sleeve, in their belt, or wherever, and pull the derringer out and shoot the guy across the card table? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or would they just get up and crack the guy with a whiskey bottle? Yeah. Or punch the guy out and take their money back? Yeah. Or go outside and get a shotgun and come back and shoot the guy in the back? Yeah. Yeah. Or wait for the guy to leave the saloon, hide in an alley or, someplace, rooftop or something, and when the guy came by, shoot him in the back or the stomach in an ambush. Yeah. They didn't do stupid things like that, Excuse me, I might have to get a package. I don't know what this is yet. Yes. Who's this? Oh, okay. Are you here now? I'll come right out. Yeah, I'll be right out right away. Okay, bye. I'm sorry, I got a delivery, but let's take a few seconds. I just gotta run out and pick it up. Be right back. Sorry. Take a break. It'll be quick. sorry, the driver had trouble finding the house. I had to go stand out in the middle of the road. So where I'm going with this is not gunfights at the OK Corral, but Federal Reserve is a crackpot, lousy, stinking agency, and it's draining more money out of the Americans and out of Trump's budget than anything else by 100 times. And all Trump has to do is declare it illegal. Now, let me tell you how he would do this. You heard about, we fired these federal employees and we're thinking taking 20% of the money we saved and giving it to Americans as a stimulus, right? It's probably going to go. It's going through Congress now. There's some opposition, but it looks like it's going to go. They say it would be about 5,000, the first check, and there'd be more. You'd probably wind up over a year or 2 years of getting $20,000. The same thing with getting rid of the Federal Reserve, but bigger. Everybody that owes the IRS money doesn't owe it anymore. Or most of it. Maybe there wouldn't be an IRS. He wants to get rid of it. Don't you see what he's doing? The IRS is the collection agency, the cash register for the Federal Reserve. When they want money, they go to the IRS and take money. The IRS is the Federal Reserve. He's getting rid of them. He's already laying them off. The Federal Reserve's a Ponzi scheme. It's illegal. It was never ratified by the states. I'm canceling all the debt to the Federal Reserve. All those trillions of dollars of debt is gone. You don't have to file tax returns anymore. You don't owe the IRS any money. There's no IRS. And because you people suffered, we're going to do another set of stimulus checks. And the same thing happens again. You start getting more $5,000 checks or $10,000 checks. And the economy booms. It's not going to work. There's not enough prophetic time. But Trump is headed there. Believe me. What would this do for the American people? Much. Massive. God is not building up America. He's taking it down, but as a snare. They don't see it coming. Okay? You're going to hurt 12 people. Probably the 12 richest families in the country. But being rich doesn't mean anything. Being the commander and the chief of the military, that has about 500,000 times more weight than being rich. But do you think they want to see their dynasty fall apart? No. They're opposed to Trump. And they're some of the richest people in the world. They just keep themselves quiet. Nobody knows who these 12 people are. Well, I'm sure Trump does, and the FBI director and a lot of other people. Okay? The special agents for the Federal Reserve is meaningless. They probably have 60 or 80 of them or something like that. That doesn't mean it. They're irrelevant. They get fired. They don't work for the federal government. They work for the Federal Reserve. They fold. That's it. Now, the debt is gone. All that big trillions of dollars of debt that America has is canceled. And there's a new Trump Bitcoin that's backed by at least $1 trillion worth of gold. What do you think just happened? I'll tell you. If it was allowed to continue, which it won't last long. It won't. The prophetic time doesn't last. But what would happen is you'd be able to go, as an American, is what you call yourselves middle class. Typically, you're really lower class, but most people think they're middle class. Get on a plane and go to Paris or Rome and have a vacation that you never dreamed you'd have. Because your dollar would be so strong. Your dollar would probably buy 4 euros. Okay. You understand? It would be like post World War II or even better. Okay? That's what would happen. So, do I think Trump is an absolute genius on domestic affairs in America, an ungodly genius? Yes, I do. Would it work if God let the time clock on America run? Yes. But that's not taking into account all the countries that hate them. See, what Trump is doing is nothing short of brilliant, and it's going to get the people intoxicated. Stimulus checks, my gosh. I can catch up on my car payments, catch up on my mortgage, pay my credit bills down, take a vacation, buy a present for my wife or my husband or my children, get a new massage chair, get a new TV, get a new computer, get a new phone. That's what the people care about in America. Do they have an inkling of an idea they're going to spend eternity in the lake of fire because they don't care about God who made them? No, they don't. Their father's the devil. Either your father is Father God Jehovah and you're a believer, or your father is the devil and you get to go swimming in the lake of fire for eternity with that jackass. That's what it is. It's no middle ground. Mark 13, the tares to the children of the devil, of the evil ones. They take the ways of their fathers on. And that ain't righteousness, it's murdering and lying. What's an extreme example of that? Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Iran, got it? Al-Qaeda, ISIS, that's the extreme example. These are the people that have a heart like the devil's. They can, I don't even know if they were able to tell the truth. And they were all about murder and violence and torture. And, you know, they're the worst. China and North Korea, I don't think are that far behind. Give them a chance. You know, that's what Trump's plan is, and it's a great plan. It ain't going to work out, though. But people, you start telling people about this in America, very few people would understand it. You know who would probably understand it? The patriots, the survivalists, the preppers. They would understand this. They would. Now, who are Trump's enemies that want to get rid of him? Okay. Well, the people that are in the LGBTQ persuasion, because he's turning against them and their special rights, the people that got the DEI and the special, you know, considerations with jobs and things like that, they don't like him. People that have friends and family that are illegal immigrants, they don't like him. Illegal immigrants don't like him, and there's so many million of them, they may get violent and probably will. A lot of the FBI is suing them. They don't like him. You know? The transgender people don't like him because he's knocking that out in the military. And that means in the future it's going to get knocked out in other places. Of course, Mexico and Canada don't like him, just to throw that in. A lot of corporations don't like him, like car manufacturers and others that have plants in Mexico to save money. Now they're getting hit with a 25% tariff. They're going to have to shut their plants They don't like him, and they got money. They got money. And the Federal Reserve families that own that thing, they got money. They don't even go to work. And you don't know who they are. Could it be Musk? I don't think so. Musk goes to work. These people don't go to work. They have foundations, charities. They get involved in, owning racehorses, race cars, racing yachts, or collecting artwork, or whatever the heck they do. Who knows what they do? Yeah. Let's see who else would dislike him. A lot of liberals, a lot of minorities that were getting advantages from the equal opportunity and the DEI and all that stuff. That's a massive amount of people. And the liberals that had a lifestyle for 12 years, 8 with Obama, interrupted by 4 with Trump, and then 4 years with Biden. 12 years, and these people are what, 25, 35 years old. To them, this is a lifestyle where there's 26 sexes, where you're not going to get a job at this company unless you're LGBT, because everybody else is. You're not going to fit in unless you're one of them. Where the use of drugs is pretty common. Marijuana especially. Well, Trump doesn't talk about marijuana at all, does he? Not a word. Not a word. I don't think he likes this stuff. But not a word. He's cutting down on abortions. You know how many left-wing women are going to hit the fan on that one? They're going to go nuts. What? You got a few million here, a few million there, a few million there, and you add them all up. Trump won the election by what? A few points? 4, 5, 6 points, something like that. 3, 4, even 3 or 4. You got roughly half the country doesn't want Trump. And these are irreconcilable differences. The guns, when Trump does gun permit reciprocity, where if you got a gun carry concealed permit in one state, you can carry it in all 50 states. I kid you not, they are going to explode in hatred over that. The people in California can't carry guns themselves. They can't get a permit. Somebody from Mississippi or Arkansas or Alabama can go there with his cowboy boots, cowboy hat, big rodeo buckle on his blue jeans, packing a .45. And he goes to church every Sunday and he hates everything they stand for. How do you think they will feel? Did you get it? So the other version of this reciprocity goes like this. Concealed permits are not required under the Second Amendment. They don't exist anymore. You want one, get one, but you don't need one. It's a joke. They'll just say you can carry with or without a permit, so nobody will get the permits, nobody will renew them. The office will close. And that applies in any state. So now people, wherever they live in the United States, can carry without a permit concealed. And probably open carry too. And that makes the country more resilient against terrorists, for sure. It's what Netanyahu should have done at least a decade ago, but he's such a lousy individual. So there you have that. That's going to cause massive uprisings. The way the left wing works is not hard to understand. We don't want anybody to have a gun, but we've got the political control. We got the mayors, we got the board of supervisors, we got the governor, we got the federal government, and they got the guns. And we tell them what we want, they pass the laws, and they enforce it with their police. That's how the left works. They really don't like guns. It's not that they don't like guns. They like a heavily armed government that they control. If they have a government that they can't control, like with the Trump administration, they are very, very unhappy campers. Trump's going after the Department of Education. Do you think the teaching in the schools is going to change about things like LGBT, transgender? He's making it illegal for people under 18 or so to get transgender surgery. He's alienating millions of people here, there, and everywhere. And they are at irreconcilable differences with the Trump administration because they cannot go back to living the way they did around the year 2000. Most of them were babies or not alive back then. They can't go back to that. What are they going to do? Well, the way it works, let me yeah, the sheriff in the United States is the supreme law enforcement officer in his jurisdiction. But once the sheriff goes out of his county, he doesn't have the sheriff powers. A U.S. Marshal, it doesn't matter wherever his feet touch down in the 50 states and Washington, D.C., he has the power of the sheriff. So when you look at it from that perspective, the federal marshal has tremendously broader powers. Plus, the federal marshal is also a federal agent, so he has access to the federal resources, which the sheriff doesn't have. But you're right, the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the area is the sheriff, but it only applies to his county. When he goes out of his county, he's still a law enforcement officer. The states can be different. Like they'll have a police officer, like New York City cop is a police officer in the city, and then when he goes out of the city, he's a peace officer, which has lower powers and things like that. Okay, so Trump's primed for a civil war. And he has to do something on the international front with the military, or he's going to be laughing stock. They're going to start making memes about him, and, you know, they'll show the Khomeini of Iran chasing him, sticking a pitchfork in his butt while he runs away. You know, and Trump's aware of this. Trump is afraid of war. He doesn't feel comfortable with it. He grew up all his life. He understands Elon Musk. He understands Bill Gates. He understands the Treasury. He understands the IRS. He understands these government people. He doesn't get it with war. He's not comfortable. He doesn't like it. I think he's nervous, and he really knows his way around doing things to get rid of the IRS and the Federal Reserve and all that. Oh yeah, I mean, you know, he's a master at that, but he's going to have to go to war, and he doesn't like it, and he doesn't have his generals having a firm control of the military yet, and he needs the CIA and the NSA. The military can't fight without the CIA and the NSA. They're vital. Okay? The CIA is vital, and the NSA, to fighting. Now, if you're fighting Hamas, no, you don't need them. But if you're fighting Iran, you do. Okay? If he starts with Hamas, Trump starts with Hamas, he could wind up finishing off with Iran too. Iran probably thinks they could attack American warships and Trump will run away at this point. If Israel will fight Egypt. That's in the scriptures. It will happen. In Jeremiah 50:51, it says, in America, ruler against ruler. Previous to that, it says nation against nation. So that's one country against another country. So when it says nation against nation, we know that what that is. But when it says ruler against ruler, what is that? Well, it's not a repeat of the same thing, one country against another. Why would that be? In close succession in the same sentence? No. It's probably governors, mayors, sheriffs, and things like that have some status as a ruler going against governments, other governments. Could be state against state. It could be succession. Trump and the governor of California hate each other. Succession is a mess. Let's talk about it. The normal way, the normal way didn't really happen in the Civil War with Lincoln. It happened very quickly. The legislatures of the state have an emergency session and they vote to succeed. And then they write a letter to the White House and the Congress, the Supreme Court or whatever. We revoke the right to the states to succeed from the Union. Effective today at noon, we are no longer part of the United States. See you around the campus. Okay, what happens? Well, what do you use for a currency? The American dollar? Well, you have to for a while. What do you use for banks? Because they're all on the U.S. banking system. How does that work? How do you do bank-to-bank transfers? How do you clear checks from other states? What about the credit cards? How does that work? You getting the complexity here? What happens to the federal land you have in your state? Forests, military bases. You think you're going to go to the federal government and say, well, your base, your big military base with 38,000 soldiers is in our state. Sorry, the soldiers are yours. Do with them as you will, but get them out of our state. And you want your military equipment, by all means, get it out of our state. But the land is ours. You don't own it anymore. Interesting concept, isn't it? You know how they water up the value of gold? You know, a year and a half ago, gold was 1,900. Now it's 2,900. I mean, Trump could run it to 5,900. How do you run the gold like that? Well, they have a thing called COMEX. And people go to banks, just like you could buy stocks and bonds through a bank. They go to banks, mostly out of the United States. I think it's more popular than in the United States, but it goes on, I think, in the U.S., I think. I don't know. They have what we call paper gold. In other words, they're speculating on a promise to deliver gold if you own it and the time comes to deliver. Like when you buy oil futures, it's going to say like May 11th, the future is due, and you got so many barrels of oil, coming to you. So they try to, sell that before the due date to somebody that wants it on the due date because they have a need for oil and they're a consumer of oil. The speculator's not a consumer of oil. He wouldn't know what to do with it. What's he going to do? Drain his swimming pool and put the oil in, root his swimming pool, and then what does he do with it from there? Get a pump and put it in his car? And, come on, it's nonsense. So it's the same thing with the gold. They're saying it's not an expiring thing. Although they have them that do expire, they have options that do expire. So you're buying an option to buy 100 ounces of gold at $3,000 for 90 days. So at any point in the 90 days, if you want that redeemed in hard gold, you can do it for $3,000. So if gold is $2,600 an ounce, you're never going to redeem it, because you're going to lose money. You're just going to let the option expire because you got to pay $3,000 for it. Why buy that gold for $3,000 when you can go across the street to any dealer and buy it for $2,600, right? But if gold goes to $3,500, well, now you can buy it for $3,000, so then you redeem it. So how do they mess with gold? They have probably several. I heard the number 62 times more paper gold than there is physical gold in the world. That's a multiplier of 62. It's not 62 ounces more. It's 62 times more gold exists with this paper gold, which is fictitious gold. It really doesn't exist. And these COMEX people could never deliver all that gold. But so much of this just expires without anybody trying to redeem it physically. They don't care. Okay? It's like with America in the old days, it's like having $1 of gold and writing 62 $1 bills backed by gold. If one person in the 62 redeems the gold, you're broke. You don't have any gold for the next person. That's COMEX. There's no controls on these people. They don't audit them. They don't make sure they just get away with it. So whenever they want to stop the value of gold from going up, they just put more contracts out there. So they want to, let's say gold's 3,000 and it starts to go up. It goes 3,050, 3,070. They pay that for it, right? And then all they do is produce another 30,000 contracts and sell it at 3,000. So then people could buy it for 3,000. So then if you want to sell your contract, you're not going to be able to get 3,050 or anything. You got to sell for 3,000. So they reduce the price that way. You're getting the idea. I'm oversimplifying it. Because these people are speculating. And that is how they set the spot price of gold. Okay? That's what controls spot pricing. Which means you take your ounce gold coin to the pawn dealer or the pawn shop or the gold bullion guy and you sell it. The price you get is going to be paid based on the spot price of gold, which changes every few seconds, but not by much, usually. Okay? So if you want to run the price of gold up, you reduce the amount of contracts out there for paper gold. And then people got to pay more. And you stop putting new contracts out there. So could Trump run the price of gold up? Yes. Could he run it up to a crazy level? He could. What's a crazy level? 10,000 an ounce? Yeah. But it would cause so much attention to gold. The demand for people to buy gold on the way up would be crazy. And what would that do? Assuming the government and their cronies don't keep issuing more contracts for gold, making more and more paper gold available, it would drive the price up more insanely. Now, if Trump's going to dump the Federal Reserve, go to a digital currency, which means you have no more paper money. That means every single transaction in America is monitored. Tips. Well, but if there's no IRS and taxes, what the heck do people care? The only people that would care would be illegal contraband dealers, criminal offenses, stolen jewelry, stolen art, stolen cars, illegal guns, terrorists. They would care. His Bitcoin, the Trump Bitcoin, is not going to be really anonymous. Private, yeah. And maybe you don't even need banks anymore. You probably do, but maybe he has a vision of no more banks. I don't know. His Bitcoin entity is the bank. I don't know if he wants to get rid of banks, but you don't really need them anymore if you're on Trump Bitcoin. What for? Loans? No. You could have lending companies that are not anywhere near as powerful as the bank. There's no cash. There's no ATM machines. There's no going into a bank and cashing a check. There are no checks. Everything is transferred in 2 seconds. You buy something online, ba-ding! No more waiting for the bill from the credit card company in 6 weeks and then mailing a check in or paying them online. You charge something with your Trump Bitcoin, boom, it's out of your account in seconds. Does that help you? No, you're better off getting a free ride, but who does it help? The billionaires of the world. It helps them. They get their money faster. People would be so inebriated or drunk with this new financial system that would benefit them. They wouldn't know what to do. They'd accept everything, but they have no economic freedom whatsoever. There wouldn't be any offshore banks. You don't need it. There's no IRS. There's no tax evasion. The only people that need it are the real criminals. And that makes life so difficult for them. They go to other countries or something. There's no paper money at all. There's no checks. How do credit cards fit in? Well, you could pay them with the Trump Bitcoin, and that would work, and they could keep the credit card companies going. And instead of using dollars on the statement, it'll say Bitcoins. That's all. It'll be the same thing. But you can't mail a check in. You have to get online and punch it in, and boom, the money goes to them. So, yeah, the credit cards would survive, but yeah, that would work. There's no privacy in credit cards. Yeah, that would work. So if you want to borrow money, so to speak, you make payments every month on the credit card bill of a certain percentage and using Bitcoin, and they're charging you interest, and yeah, that would work. No IRS, no Federal Reserve, no Federal Reserve debt, no paper money, no coins. How would you do postage stamps? Well, you buy stamps and pay for it with your Trump Bitcoin, that's all. COD deliveries would soar. In other words, you'd be able to buy things from people COD. The truck driver comes, brings it to the house, you hit the Bitcoin, you pay him, he sees it instantly, he gives you the package. It's not like taking a check. I don't know if it would soar, but it would come back, I guess. You know. What happens if there's a power outage? Well, you'd have anarchy. People would be killing each other, breaking into houses, robbing each other. Do you understand that? The problem with this system, if the grid goes down, everybody is completely on a barter system immediately. Or a criminal, savage gang running around. That's what would happen. So is that a big problem? Oh yeah, a huge problem. Huge problem. But the people would be all in. And the US, I say the US dollar might be worth 4 to 1, $4. I mean, $1 is worth €4. It might be 8 or 10 on something like this. You might be so wealthy if Trump ever pulled it off and time allowed, that when you went overseas, you would be amazed at what you could do. You'd probably be able to, like the old days, take $5,000 and go someplace in the Caribbean or Europe or something and live off it for 6 months. Well, then what about you'd be able to buy European cars dirt cheap? Yeah, along comes tariffs. Trump's thinking ahead. Trump's a genius, okay? And he knows a lot more than the average person does. Okay? He knows a lot more than what smart people know. And he's an ungodly man, and he seems to be extremely deficient in international matters. The European Union is building up a plan to combat Trump with tariffs. The other countries are. I mean, BRICS is trying. They're all being outsmarted by Trump. He outthinks them. Okay? They don't know what he has in store. When he dumps the Federal Reserve and cancels the debt and goes to the Bitcoin and all this stuff, you think the schmuck Arab countries are going to know what to do, or China or North Korea or Iran? They're sitting there going, oh, what the heck just happened? I don't know what happened. Allah Akbar, let's kill somebody. They're not going to know what happened. Hezbollah, Hamas are going to know what happened. Putin, he would understand it. Xi Jinping in China, seriously doubt it. The guy in North Korea, seriously doubt it. Guy in Venezuela, no. Cuba, no. Iran, no. Russia, probably. Would there be other people that would know what he did? Very few around the world. But I see the pieces coming together. His big problem is he doesn't believe the Bible. And he doesn't know he's the daughter of Babylon. And unless he gets killed or replaced, he's the one referred to as this Nebuchadnezzar. So what we got to look forward to in the realistic things that are going to come to pass, is Trump's going to go to war with somebody or attack somebody. And, what are Trump's worst choices for that? North Korea, China, Russia. Iran's not a good choice, but it's a choice. Where's his best choice? Gaza. Next best, Houthis. Next best, Egypt, but I'm not sure he wants that, or Iran. I think he'd probably start with Gaza. But now if he starts with Gaza, he has to start with Egypt. Because they're tied together at the hip right now. So we'll see what happens. If Gaza gave some assurances to Netanyahu that all the hostages are coming back, what would that look like? Oh, I can tell you that perfectly. The only assurances Netanyahu and the Security Cabinet are going to take is you give us every single hostage back right away, and then we leave Gaza. And they will never agree to that because Netanyahu just broke his word on him. He was staging the hostages for release Saturday and he reneged. So they're going to think, my gosh, we'll hand over all the hostages. Our bargaining position is finished. And then he says something changed. I can't leave Gaza. What do we do then? Then he just wipes us out. So the chances of an agreement between Netanyahu and Hamas and Gaza being reached, I would say, is zero. I mean, there's always a chance, but I don't think so. They plan on using these hostages for years so they can rebuild. What Netanyahu can do, because he's getting a little tougher with Trump around, is I don't think he'll do it, but he could tell the people in Gaza, we're going to resume the war, and if you kill any of the hostages, we did an exchange with you for like 50 hostages for one Israeli. Okay, every time you kill one hostage, we're going to kill 50 of your terrorist prisoners. What would that do? Well, the world would blow up with rage at Israel, but Trump may not care. It would make the idea of becoming a terrorist a good idea to these young kids that are brainwashed with hatred for Jews. They would start getting cold feet because now you're not going to sit in jail until Hamas gets you out. Now you're going to sit in jail until the Jews decide to kill you. Okay? And the other thing that they're going to do, I don't know when, is they're going to stop Mahmoud Abbas with the Palestinian Authority for paying the pensions to the families of the dead terrorists at about $3,200 US a month. And the same goes to the families of terrorists in jail while he's in jail. With the dead ones, it's for life. And that's got to come to an end. Trump's going to have to stop that. So what's going to happen in the immediate future? We're probably going to see a resumption of the fighting in Gaza, probably. And very quickly, I'm talking days. There is no phase 2. Netanyahu never even officially negotiated a phase 2. So Netanyahu already is declaring Hamas in violation of the ceasefire, so he doesn't have to wait till March 1st or March 2nd when phase 1 expires. He can start any time because he's violating the ceasefire by not releasing the hostages because he's saying there's no ceasefire, you violated it. Now, he showed Hamas that you can't trust me because I said I was going to release the hostages and I got you to give us our hostages back, and then I reneged on you. So Hamas is going to say, well, how the heck are we going to give you more hostages again, and you say you're going to withdraw from Gaza and release 2,000 hostages, and you don't. Well, Netanyahu is going to say, well, that's it, or bomb to death. Now, if you this is another part of it, by the way. I'm sorry, I left this out. If you release all the hostages, he's basically telling Hamas, you get to leave Gaza. He's telling them, you get to leave Gaza, because the counter of that is if you don't leave Gaza, you get our bombs and artillery and bullets and die. So Netanyahu is starting to play hardball with them, which means Trump's going to back him up, which also means Trump knows he's going to have to take that back up into action in some way. So we'll have to see how it goes. Trump's not going to fly American jets over Gaza and start blowing up civilians. You can forget that. He's not going to do that. Trump, we know, hands down, will give us all kinds of military assistance, money as well, and also assist with refueling tankers and reconnaissance intelligence and all sorts of stuff, eavesdropping on conversations. But would he put boots on the ground in Gaza with Israel? I don't think so. He doesn't have to. But if Egypt gets into the fracas, which I think they will, because they know Trump wants to build a resort in Gaza, and if they see Trump messing around with Israel and helping Israel, they're going to get scared and think they're going to inherit 1 million or more Gazans. So they're going to have to make some assessments as to where they think their risk lies. And start up with Trump. Now, Egypt may talk with Iran and even Turkey and Jordan, and they may all decide that they're going to try to kill Israel if this goes down. And that, my friends, is called Zechariah 12 siege. And that looks like it's well on the way. Happy days are coming again. Not for the world, but for us. So there you have it. That's my take on what's going on now. It is end times, and we definitely need to be aware that amazing, complicated changes and shifts are very likely. And remember, Syria fell in 11 days, and that's astounding, with an army of 300,000, with all sorts of missiles, with all sorts of naval boats and aircraft and helicopters and bunkers. 11 days, amazing. So you could see a country fall in 3 or even a day, like in Revelation 18. Suddenly, in a day or an hour. Pray for all the true believers in the world, for their peace, safety, protection, joy, relaxation. We can relax and be calm. For all the elect, all the true believers, all those that are destined to be sons of Jehovah. Please pray for me and my wife for our peace, safety, protection, joy, healing. Pray for our finances. Pray for better videos, more revelations. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And that's about it, you know. And that's it. And I send my shalom to all those Yeshua HaMashiach. And, well, I'm a little over 2 hours today. I want to get down to 90 minutes if I can. If you like it, hit the like button. If you like these reports, not only hit the like button, subscribe. It helps me with more popularity with YouTube. And that's it. I'm going to go get something to eat. I'm finding this carnivore diet great for the way I feel, but I don't know. I feel like a carbohydrate junkie. I keep thinking about carbohydrate food. It's crazy. But I mean, you know, an alcoholic thinks about a bottle of Johnny Walker. A drug addict thinks of a hypodermic full of heroin. And what do I think about? I think about a loaf of bread. I think about a loaf of bread. So I must have been a bread addict, you know. Now, I want to be the first to tell you, I find no scripture that says you go into the lake of fire because you like to eat bread. But anyway, it's annoying. But it sure feels good that I'm losing weight like crazy. Not that I had a lot of weight to lose. I'm starting to be concerned about losing too much weight already. So I'm going to try to stick with this till redemption. But it's getting harder and harder, you know. You know, you get really hungry, food craving, and I get, you know, all right, I eat cheese, I eat chicken, I eat lamb, I eat turkey, I eat a hamburger, I eat some beef and fish, and then what? Repeat again. The thing that really gets me the most is dried fruit, nuts, can't have those things, breads, juice. It's hard, but we've been raised in a carbohydrate crazy world. All we do is run around eating carbohydrates, but they're bad carbohydrates, not good carbohydrates. No. And you can't get the good carbohydrates because of the crazy insecticides, the GMO. They don't let the land rest every 7 years for a year. So the nutrients are sucked out of the, it's really hard. So, except for the cravings, the carnivore diet is good. But sometimes I have such a low desire to eat any more meat that I just stay hungry until my hunger goes away. That's not good. Um, I don't know what to do at this point, but I'm going to try to stay with it, and I think it'll eventually go away. But boy, in terms of energy and your body healing up, you can't beat it. You can't beat it. All right, that's my little tidbit for today. It's a carnivore diet. You can look it up and Google and, but it's real hard though. It's rewarding as all get up, okay? You know, like I did a comparison with being a drug addict or an alcoholic, and it's that good. It's as rewarding as kicking alcohol with drugs, but in the food area. But it really is fantastic in that area. But boy, you keep, my mouth waters for a good piece of bread. It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, guys. Um, so I hope you got something out of this, and make sure you're subscribed and keep after me on Telegram, because something's likely to blow up in the next 48 or 72 hours. Real likely. I'm out. Thank you.